The Uber rides are going down and the Waymo rides are going up.
Yeah.
Why? Because I've been interviewing the Waymo customers and they tell me I'll never drive again, I'll never buy a car again, and I'll never take an Uber again.
There's a lot of talk about that you need Lidar and all this stuff.
I've had that
Waymo.
argument for 10 years. China has 10 cities bigger than New York. 10. So if you think getting robotaxis into New York is important, it's 10 times more important to get it into China for an investor because you're going to make more profit if you open up China. But he said the real reason is they argued over grams on this car. They needed to make the car as light as absolutely possible so that it could go a further distance on electricity and be cheaper to operate at scale, right? Everybody in robotics says Tesla's ahead. In fact, I've talked to Elon about this. I was like, do you have a spreadsheet to lay out your predictions of how many sales? He goes, you don't need a spreadsheet. The numbers are insane.
How fast do you see Tesla robotaxis scaling in the US?
There's 300 cities in America with more than 100,000 people. By the end of next year, I would expect it to be in.
Welcome everyone to this special podcast episode, of course, talking about Tesla. We have here Robert Scoble. He is a big name in the Silicon Valley. And if you guys don't know who he is, he's written so many books about AI. He's very well known in the tech space. He actually got the first ride with Elon in the first Tesla. I mean, most of us here are Tesla investors. So this is a sheesh moment, is what I like to call it. But welcome, Robert. It's a pleasure to have you on. It's my honor. And thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks. No, I had a famous blog here in Silicon Valley for a long time. Now it's, a lot of people are doing futurism. I have a list of 1,500 futurists on X.com. It's like there's a lot more people doing this stuff and trying to predict what's going on and tell you about what new company is here and what new thing is here. But for a while, I had a pretty singular view of this. So I have a lot of old school stories from, writing book. I wrote a book about social media before Twitter or Facebook started, right? And I worked at Microsoft as a strategist back then. Interviewed 600 employees back then.
Wow.
But it goes back to I was Apple's first child laborer. That's sort of why I wore my Apple shirt. Back in 1978, my mom got a job from Hildy Licht here in Silicon Valley. I grew up in Cupertino, California. My dad had a PhD and moved us to Cupertino in 1971, and so I had a view of Silicon Valley from a fairly early state. And now it's a big deal, Back then it was a lot of farms still here. Siri was launched in my house. I had the first ride in the first Mercedes-Benz AI car, right? I had the first ride in the first Tesla, the first ride in the BMW i3, the first ride in the Fiat 500, because I studied automotive innovation. Because when I grew up here, there was no car companies here in Silicon Valley, but they all moved their R&D departments here because this is where the technology talent is. Silicon Valley has a lot more technology talent in one place than anywhere else in America. And even the Germans, right? VW started the building where the Waymo company was invented, right, at Stanford University. So all the car companies moved here to Silicon Valley to try to get the talent, the programmers and the geniuses who build this stuff to work for them and build new things. And so I've had a long history of being first on a lot of things. So
what was your favorite?
It's hard to beat first ride in the first Tesla. I mean, and that happened by accident. I was having dinner with Jason Calacanis, who's really good friends with Elon. He was best friends. And Jason back then had a Corvette, pretty nice yellow Corvette. And he during dinner, he was like, I think Elon just got his first Tesla. And I'm like, oh, what's that? I mean, I heard of it, but what, and he called up Elon, and in 20 minutes, Elon was at the restaurant, and I have pictures still in a blog post,
Wow.
and I was in the world's press for getting the first ride. But we went
Yeah.
on a little drag race back then. It's hard to beat that,
Yeah.
out of all the things I've done, and I've done some crazy shit in my life, but both good and
Yeah.
bad. We can talk about the bad too, but Siri being launched in my house is also pretty special. That's the most
That's amazing.
that's most profitable purchase that Apple's ever made. Insta360, this
Wow.
camera company, they launched in my house, right? So
Oh yeah, I see them everywhere.
yeah, right. So I was
Yeah.
the first one
Wow.
to see, and that's an AI camera. So I've been studying AI because I had that viewpoint, right, of seeing new things. I got to see AI things first. Actually, the first augmented reality app on the iPhone store was created by an intern at Yelp after reading my blog, going, why can't we hold our phone up and see where all the restaurants are? Right?
Wow.
So
That's amazing.
I've had a chance to change the world a few times, and it's pretty special.
No, it's incredible. Like I love this. I love this. This is why I wanted you to come on. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
amazing.
I have a lot of
Absolutely
stories
love it.
of how things used to be.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. Oh man, everyone. This is why I recommend everyone to go follow him on X. YouTube. His YouTube is in the description as well as his LinkedIn, all in the description. Highly recommend you go follow him. He's an incredible guy. And again, very honored that you're here. Very,
Thank you.
very excited that you're here.
And I've mapped out
And
the whole tech industry on X. So if you go to my lists on my profile, you'll find that I have lists of the Tesla community, a list of the entire AI world, 30,000 people and 8,000 or 7,000 companies, right? All in AI, all categorized. I've been working hard on that. So to give
I should probably
people
join.
a way to watch the AI world, because this AI world is continuing to affect not just Tesla, but a whole raft of industries. And whether you know what Palantir is or NVIDIA is, we can talk about those things too, and where I think things are going.
How do you think the world's going to look like in 5 years from now? Like in terms of AI?
Well, I'm studying glasses, right? These are even reality glasses. These are my old analog glasses. They don't have computers. These actually have two little computers at the sides here, with a little tiny green and black display and some batteries back here. And they put a little digital display right about here, and they're pretty cool. But coming in next month, Meta is coming with a Loomis waveguide display in the right eye, which gives you a color screen. These are only green and black, right? So this is like the Apple II. We're about to get the Macintosh, which is Meta's glasses, right, with a color screen, and that way you can talk to the AI, and the AI can talk to you, or tell it, hey, put on Fox News or CNN or CNBC, and be able to watch a video screen in your glasses, and that kicks you off. In 5 years, the glasses are going to be much more capable than even the Meta glasses are. Google and Meta have many versions set up for the future. As the computers get smaller and more battery efficient, and the new holodecks that are coming. I don't know if your viewers saw that Google just announced Genie 3, which is a 3D environment that you can talk to, and it can do anything your mind can imagine, right? Hey, Genie, take me skiing. And all of a sudden you're on a mountain, wearing an Apple Vision Pro or something like an Apple Vision Pro. You're on a mountain skiing, right? Hey, I want to ride a pink dinosaur around a purple forest. Boom, it does it, and it looks photorealistic. And this has implications on robots and other things, which we're going to talk about, I think. Because robots are coming. And it has implications for the future of brain computer interfaces as well. And that's hard for people to really understand, but there's 9 people who have wires on their brains right now and can just think and compute. That's crazy.
That is crazy. Do you think the glasses can replace the phones?
Not immediately, because Apple, for instance, has a lot of advantage because they have the ability to put a big battery down here with all the GPUs that are going to run the AIs that you want to run, and the graphics. and they have a big heat sink down here. And so you're going to still need a phone, even if you start using glasses a lot. And they're still not perfect, to really take over what we do with a phone. But 5 years from now, we probably are starting to really understand that we're using our phones less, particularly at the bleeding edge. And in 10 years, I think, we're going to be in a world where we really don't use phones very much anymore, at least at the bleeding edge. If you're living in a slum in Shanghai, maybe you still are using phones, but China is going to accelerate far faster than we are here in America, because they're excited about this stuff in a way that Americans are like, oh, what's a Vision Pro? Why do we need that?
I would reckon maybe Elon will if the demand is high on these things, maybe he'll make one through XAI.
Well, or make a partnership with somebody who has glasses, right? There's a lot of move. That's what makes this industry so interesting. You have no idea what Elon and Tim Cook are gonna cook up tomorrow. I mean, do they all go to Sun Valley, Idaho every July and get in the hot tub and smoke some weed? All of a sudden some deals are happening and the world changes, and that's what makes this so interesting. But in 5 years, we're also starting to really understand the power of robotics, and we're starting to see them in our streets and delivering pizza maybe. In 10 years, the robots will totally be generalized, and they'll be in your home, and they'll be coming down in cost. Right now, Boston Dynamics humanoid robots, $150,000, and a Unitree, a little short dude from China, is $60,000 for the one you want, and it doesn't really do that much yet. It does some cute dancing. We had robot fights here in San Francisco a week ago, where we had two Unitree robots, and you get in there in front of 500 people and have a little fight. But they're cute and they're fun, but they're not really capable enough to really do your laundry or wash your dishes or cook your dinner or clean your house, that kind of thing. But they're coming, and the robotic world is something. You told me you have a lot of investors here. This is stuff that I start thinking about, because I'm a long-term investor. I don't know how to play the short-term game. There's people who do day trading and hourly trading, and have AI systems that are buying and selling their stocks and investments. I don't do that. I just pick companies that I think in a decade are going to be much bigger than they are today. And Tesla certainly is one of them. And we could talk about why. But in 5 years, we're going to have more robots in the world. We're going to have more digital glasses in the world. We're going to have more robotaxis in the world, more Waymos, more Teslas, right? And a few others. And we're going to have the AI world is not going to stop. So AI is going to continue changing everybody's businesses and getting used. Certainly 5 years from now, people are going to be using them at a far higher rate than they are today. And you see ChatGPT is being used by hundreds of millions of people. So that changed in the last 3 years.
We're on the topic of humanoid robot. Let's talk about that. Are we actually eventually going to have more humanoid robots than the entire population of human among us?
Because that might take 15 years or 10 to 15 years, right? Remember, when Elon makes claims, he's right, but he lives on a different time frame than we do. If he says something's coming out in 2 weeks, often it takes 3 months, right? So if he says by 2030 there's going to be many more robots, there's a chance that's true, particularly in China. Because in China, they had the one child policy. In other words, a family could only have one child. And that meant that a lot of them aborted girls. Let's just be honest. So there's a lot of men and not a lot of women, which means they have a real labor problem coming at them, over the next 20 years. And they see it as an existential threat to their country, and they see that developing robots is real important to the future of their country. we haven't in America, we haven't yet gotten to that point yet. We have similar problems here, but not like that, right?
Not as bad.
That's a different kind of problem. And they have, 1.3 billion people to take care of and feed and make things for, right? So they have a different attitude towards robotics. Last week they had a robot Olympics. We haven't yet.
Yeah, I saw that. That was crazy.
I can't even buy an American robot. If I wanted to buy a robot today, I'd have to buy a Chinese Unitree robot or one of the Chinese ones, right? Even to do something like a robot fight, the people who put on the robot fight in San Francisco, they want to buy an American robot, but they're not available yet, right? So we're falling behind China in a lot of ways in AI and robotics. And that's going to be something that we have to worry about as investors and invest in, because that's how we get back in the game is to find people who are able to make things and pour capital behind them, right? That's what we're doing when we buy a stock. Right. We're saying that company has a future and we want to help it. Right. And we want to profit if it does well. Right. Yeah. We have a lot to do in America.
Elon's talking about a million robots. Here's the thing. Like when I invested into Tesla, the main thesis for my investment was because of robotaxis, not because of the humanoid bot. But the humanoid bot is becoming slowly a much bigger story, given the fact that I think there's more competition with trying to make humanoid robots than there is to expand robotaxis, the way I'm seeing it. And it's kind of scary. And I can't wrap my brain around it because Elon's talking about 1 million robotaxi production by 2030. And I'm just like, I mean, I don't know what to think of that. It's
he sees where the world's going at a deep level. He's the only, Mark Benioff wrote the foreword for one of my books, the founder and CEO of Salesforce, because I got ahead of him. Steve Wozniak wrote the foreword for my latest book, co-founder of Apple, because I got ahead of him. I can't get ahead of Elon. He's doing Neuralinks and going to space and building robo-taxis, right? How am I going to bring him something that gets ahead of him? I haven't figured out how yet, and I'm pretty good at getting ahead of people.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But Uber was invented in front of me in a Paris snowstorm, so I got to see Uber from the very beginnings, right? And part of why it got invented there was we were all stuck in a snowstorm and there was no cars. There was tax. I had the last car. I was speaking at the Loeb conference there, and that's why Garrett Camp and Travis Kalanick were there, because they were speakers as well. And so we were just leaving altogether as speakers, and we couldn't get anywhere because the whole city shut down with a few inches of snow, right? And Travis turned to Garrett and said, why can't we see on our phones where the cars are, so we could at least walk to the cars and sit in the car, right? And that led to Uber, and from that point to Uber being a worldwide company was just about 3 years. So Elon knows that story, and he knows how fast things can grow around the world. They can grow in 3 years. They can go from an idea in somebody's head to an international company, and he sees. He's done some of the same research I've done. I did a lot of consumer research for the auto industry, going around America and asking, 12 years ago, going around America and asking people, are you ready to get in a car without a steering wheel? And everybody said, no, but if you come to San Francisco or, a few other places in America, now Atlanta and Phoenix and LA, they have Waymos, but certainly in San Francisco, there's a high density of Waymos. So I've been interviewing Waymo customers. Well, they tell me, I'll never drive again. I'll never buy a car again, and I'll never take an Uber again, right? If they have the choice. Now, they don't have the choice everywhere yet, but when that system grows to be worldwide and go to the airports and do everything, that's going to be how people change. And I study how people change, right? Because everybody tells me they're never going to do something, then a year later, they're doing it. When I wrote my book about social media before X started, right about the same time that YouTube started, And people would say, "Oh, I'm not going to do social media." And of course, now they're all on social media,
They're all on social
addicted like the
media.
rest of us. Oh, my business will never have a thing on social media. That Gary Vaynerchuk and I give talks together where thousands of people would say, "We are never going to do this," and they would stand in line and talk at the microphone and tell us all the reasons they would never do this, and now they're all doing it.
And they're all doing it.
Right. So Elon knows that human beings change when they're presented with something new. Henry Ford knew this, right? He has a famous quote. If I asked people what they wanted, they'd say a better horse, right? They didn't see that they would want a contraption to drive them around town, soon, until he showed it to them and made it affordable, right? And made it reliable with his assembly line. And that's the lesson here, that disruption is coming at a fast rate, and people are resisting. How many people tell you, "I don't like using AI. I think AI videos are stupid. I think I'm never going to have a robot," or I've been doing X audio space. "I'm not going to put on a neural link. That's too weird," right? Well, yeah, in today's context, that's true, but that's what happens. The world changes and things get cheaper and better and with new capabilities, and we adopt them. So
yeah, and then once they see the benefits, they want it to be first in line.
Yeah, and so as an investor, if you get ahead of people a little bit, you can make a lot of money because you can invest in a company that doesn't seem important today, right?
Yeah.
And tomorrow it all of a sudden becomes important. Why? Because you saw that human beings are going to change because technology is coming, and Robotaxi is coming. It's clear. Why? Because you put a human in the car, it becomes more dangerous. Let's just start with that. Two of my friends died in car wrecks in high school, and so I studied automotive innovation. And I'm sorry, AI is better at driving than you are, right? It's smoother at driving than you are, and it's safer than driving at you are. And even if you don't agree with me today, in 6 months, it's going to improve, and you're getting worse. Humans are getting worse in terms of driving. We're more distracted because of cell phones and carelessness and narcissism, right? The AI is improving over time. And so if you say it's not safer today, in 6 months, that is not going to be a true statement. And it already is safer than people. Have you heard of a Waymo killing anybody lately? There's thousands of them driving around America, right?
Yeah.
They're safe, and they're getting safer and better. Yes, there are some mistakes that may gone the wrong way sometimes, but those mistakes get fixed. And then, 6 months from now, you're not going to see stories like that. Why? Because that's what AI does. AI starts worse than a child, and it keeps improving until it beats the best human being at whatever they're trying to do, right? That's how go back and watch the videos of how it beat the Go players. It started worse than a child. Anybody could have beat the AI in the early days. And it just kept improving until it beat the best human being. And that's what's going to go on with Robotaxi. So if you know that, and Elon knows that, right? He runs an AI company. He knows that even if it's not there today, that tomorrow it's going to be there. How much has your Tesla improved since you bought it, right? I bought my first one in 2018. It could barely drive in a straight line. Now it's driving through town and doing much better than I am, right?
That's amazing. That's amazing. For me, I'm in the Middle East. I'm in Kuwait at the moment, and there are no Teslas here because
there will be.
I hope so. I really want a Tesla for my next car. Like
Elon took a lot of money from the sheik. You know that the sheik wants a Tesla.
Yeah, like back home, in Toronto, because that's where I'm from. Every time when I'm back in town, I would rent all the Teslas. I've driven all of them except the newest Model Y. I haven't. Yeah. I love them. Like I just can't. I can't see myself driving another car. Right? It's just they're amazing. They're amazing. Yeah. And so I'm waiting until they're available here in Kuwait. Then I'm first in line to get it. There's no question about that. But let's talk about the robotaxis for a second. We mentioned Waymo and Tesla. There's a lot of debate going around, and I do want to put this debate to an end. You know, there's a lot of talk about that you need Lidar and all this stuff. You
I've
know,
had that
Waymo,
argument for 10 years.
you know, so, but the crazy part is that we see Tesla growing their geofence space in Austin less than 50 days. The area is bigger than Waymo's in less than 50 days. And Waymo took 10 years to get that. Same situation in the Bay Area. So
this is the bet that Elon, and I talked to Sebastian Thrun, who started the Waymo company. He actually is the guy who decided on LiDARs for Waymos, right? Back 12 years ago or so, maybe even longer. Well, he used Velodyne LiDARs in the Dartford Grand Challenge when he was going to Stanford University. That's when I first started really understanding autonomous cars, was, you know, back, in fact, almost 20 years ago. He said back then you had to use LiDAR because it's a LiDAR is 80 lasers that's spinning around 30 times a second, right? And making a 3D map of the street around you. And it's better at doing that than cameras. It uses less compute than cameras. And as the laser, you know, shines on a tree or something like that, or a stop sign, it measures the time at which the laser takes to get back to the sensor. That's called a time of flight sensor. And it's very accurate at that. In fact, Elon uses LiDARs on SpaceX, right?
Yes.
To land the rockets, because it's very accurate at seeing very minute changes in distance, right? And that's when you're landing on an expensive rocket back on Earth and trying to get it to go into that chopstick device that catches the rocket or go back to Earth, you want to have very accurate distance information. But that was true 15 years ago. The camera, to convert a camera, you know, a 2D camera sensor array, to do that takes more compute. Well, Moore's law has helped us out, right? Because Moore's law is your phone or your computer in your phone or your laptop is increasing in capabilities every 18 months. It's getting double the transistors and falling in price, right? So now you can put a cheap ass computer in a car to convert the camera into 3D map. And that's one thing. And then we see the world, the real world is analog waves coming off of your trees and your sky and stuff like that. The camera sees the world the same way we do. So now the data is more useful and is better. And the founder of Foundation Robots actually tried to prove Elon wrong when he started a humanoid robot company in San Francisco. And we talked about this. I was like, why aren't you using LiDARs on your robot? He goes, well, I tried. And adding two different sensors together actually increases the error rate for AI. It's better to choose one and go with one. And if you're going to choose one, the camera gives you a lot more data than the LiDAR does, the lasers do. And I think this is what Elon saw. This is why it's so hard to get ahead of Elon. He saw that, 10 years ago, right? When he chose to put cameras into the Model 3. And, you know, which came out in 2017. So he saw it in 2016, somewhere in that range. And they decided no LiDARs, just go cameras, right? They did have a radar in the front bumper back then. And they had ultrasonic sensors, but they turned those off because they had more error rates when they started using that data in with the camera. It was just better to use camera only to drive a car around. And the way to get there, you had to have a certain fleet size. You had to have certain number of computers with AI computers driving around and studying the data. Well, that Tesla got there, right? They have, I don't know, 10 million cars driving around the world now, maybe 11, and new 1,000 new ones every day, right? You know, it's coming out of several factories, right? And so they have the fleet to finish the job off, and only they have the fleet. That's why I knew Elon was right long ago. I wrote about this over and over again and argued with people, and we still are sort of having that argument. Oh, you need a car, you need a X-Peng with cameras and 15 lidars and lots of sensors. No, you don't. No, you don't. Now there's some exceptions to that. If you're trying to drive through smoke or heavy snow, like really heavy snow, like a blizzard, okay, maybe. And LiDAR's not the right way to go there. There's a company here that's making millimeter wave radar sensors. Well, you might use a sensor like that in that situation, but how many of us drive in a snowstorm? Not many.
So knowing that
are better than the human eye. If you're driving in a snowstorm, the camera can see in the snowstorm the same way you can. So, and that's the philosophy of Tesla is if your human eye can see it, our camera can see it and do the same thing you're doing. And
much better than you.
Feel much better than you are, right? Doesn't get drunk, doesn't get tired, doesn't get distracted, can see the whole world around you all at the same time. I can't do that. I can only look, here and there, right?
Yeah. So knowing that, don't you think that, once Tesla does scale the robotaxis, I mean, what is Waymo going to do? Like,
well,
how are they?
Tesla has some real advantages in life. First of all, we Tesla owners paid for the R&D. When I paid $6,000 or $8,000 for FSD, that was paying for the engineers to build the system. $1 billion or so dollars, right? Waymo had to do that up front, had to pay the engineers to build their system up front. So they have a bill starting out life with, $2, $3, $4 billion bill just from that. Then the Tesla owners bought the cars, right? Waymo has to put, let's say their Waymo car costs $100,000. They have to put the $100,000 up front and pay for it up front. Elon doesn't have any cars. He sold them to us, right? So we have 10 million Teslas driving around the world that we paid for, and he doesn't have to pay for that, right? Yeah. And it gets worse because particularly with the Cybercab is designed to go a mile on less electricity than any other vehicle, and a mile with fewer repairs, fewer maintenance. And so it's going to be cheaper per mile to drive than a Waymo car made by Zeekr, which means over a decade, Elon's going to be able to underprice Waymo in a lot of ways and and have a better experience to boot because he thought through things like digital vents. The Tesla has digital vents in the dashboard. Everybody's like, I don't like my Tesla dashboard. It's so plain, it doesn't have any buttons. Yeah, that's going to be a major advantage in this robotaxi world. It's easier to clean if somebody barfs all over the dash, right? And it has digital vents so that it's personalized to you. So it has a better experience for you when you get into a new robotaxi in Las Vegas or Shanghai or somewhere, right? And he's going to be able to underprice Waymo.
That's the crazy
and he's
part.
Certainly going to be able to underprice Uber, right? Because Uber has the same cost basically as a Tesla, but it has a human in the car, which is minimum wage in America is $18 an hour. So if you want to ride to the airport, you always take a wholesale cost and triple it, and that means that you're paying $80 to go to the airport. In 10 years, Elon might be able to sell you the same ride for $20.
Yeah, okay. It's crazy to me that Uber is making deals with other lidar FSD companies, and with Lucid, and they're talking about 20,000 vehicles over the next 6 years. But that should be within the next 6 days. It should not be. I don't know what they're doing.
Well, they're grasping at straws. They know this problem is coming for their business someday, right? It's not here today because Uber's worldwide and has, like, you go to the Prague airport, it's the only way to get a ride around town from the airport, right? It's standardized. So it's going to be a while before Tesla rips that out and puts Tesla Robotaxi in there. So they're going to have a business for a while. for maybe a decade, right? But eventually people figure out that Tesla's a better experience and a cheaper price. In San Francisco, you're already seeing that the Uber rides are going down and the Waymo rides are going up. Why? Because I've been interviewing the Waymo customers and they tell me I'll never drive again, I'll never buy a car again, and I'll never take an Uber again if I have a choice. Now they don't have a choice everywhere, right? But when they have a choice, that's what they're telling me over and over and over again. I'm interviewing a lot of Waymo customers to understand human mentality after they get into autonomous cars, right? And they change their mind. Everybody who says I'd like to drive, when you get in a ride in a Uber or a Waymo, I'm sorry, you change your mind. You're like, actually, I don't like to drive. It's better to take an autonomous car to work.
So is it safe to say that in the next 5 to 10 years, when we have robotaxis all over the US and in other markets as well, is it safe to say that once the option is there where people can just use the robotaxi to go from point A to B versus owning a car and insuring it and paying the lease and making sure that no one hits you or you hit anybody, that car ownership will eventually go down?
That's my prediction. Yeah. Now, it's hard to see the entire market because robotaxis are for everyone, but not everything. Right. My brother-in-law runs a glass shop and he has a truck with specialized device to hold sheets of glass on it. He's never going to use a robotaxi for that. I can't see a robotaxi glass truck show up or with his tools in it. Right. He's going to buy his own vehicle and drive around. So that kind of thing is going to go on. If you have kids, you have car seats. You don't want to take those out every ride. You want to leave them in there and have your own car. And so having the choice to own your own vehicle is still going to be there and a good group of people. But for everybody else, if you're just taking a ride to work, I know a guy who's taking a Waymo every day for 1.5 years to work. He says it's far superior to me driving. I can be on my phone. I can be doing business meetings.
That's amazing.
Listen to some music. I can be private and talk to people, do a Zoom call or a Google Meet call or something like this, right? And it's just a far superior way to get to work than trying to drive your own car or taking an Uber, which has a human in it. And it's smoother. It's safer, right? It's just a better experience to be in an autonomous car. So Elon, this is why Elon says the future is autonomous and electric, right? Why? Because electric vehicle is better than a gas vehicle. Anybody who says that, my gas vehicle is better, no, it's noisy, it's smelly, it has, I don't know how many moving parts are in it compared to an electric vehicle. It's more expensive to maintain. It doesn't last as long. You can't sit in it on a hot day, right? And work. I'd sit in my Tesla on a 110-degree day and work all day long, no problem. All right, because it's like a little office with an electric AC unit on it, right? And you can't do that in a gas car, and you just keep going, right? A gas vehicle is better for most people than gas.
What are your thoughts on Tesla licensing out full self-driving to other automakers? Because if the prediction is that if, let's say, 60 or 70% of all commute in the next 10 years is going to be with robotaxis, let's say, then most people will not purchase a car if they don't have any autonomous capabilities.
That's going to be the trend. More and more people are going to join this world than, stay in the old world.
It's a tough
one. It's just how fast. The question is, how fast does this happen? And that's just about getting your butt in a seat in one and seeing how superior, a Tesla or an autonomous car is. Will we see a licensing deal eventually? Because these companies are going to start getting threatened. They should already be threatened internally, and they are. I know a guy who got hired by Ford to deal with the Elon problem, i.e., deal with the problem that Elon is way ahead in these in this innovation race, and Ford fell behind. They just announced a new Ford truck that is pretty nice, using all of the techniques of manufacturing that Elon invented, right, or built into his factory. they haven't yet gotten to the place where they want to do a deal with Elon, because Elon is going to want all the data. And that's a hard one for executives at big car companies to get their head around. Like, what? We're going to be giving everything, all of our data to Elon, and he's going to have all the profits, really, right? Because in a robo-taxi world, who gets to get the profit? The first guy to collect the check from the customer, right? He gets 30% right off the top. And then everybody who does something being other than that, whether it's an owner or a builder, has to split up the 60%, that Elon didn't take. And Elon might take more than 30%, right? he's a bastard that way. He likes it all.
Yeah.
Which is,
that's amazing.
But anyway, this is why Apple killed their car program, right? Apple was building an autonomous car and spent tens of billions of dollars doing so. And they gave up after they realized, number one, nobody wanted to partner with Apple because Apple needed all the data. That's how you build a robotaxi. You need all the data from the car, and how you build a better service for people, right? And nobody wanted to do a deal. And so Apple had to get out of the market. Apple also got out of the market after they saw Cybercab. They realized they just can't compete with Elon. They don't have the capabilities. They don't have the factories. They don't have the ability to compete with Elon's marketing and innovation. And you see that Apple doesn't have a good AI model yet to run their
they don't
phones, right? Then Siri still sucks. And
I don't know why they're not innovating. It's kind of it's a little frustrating to me that it's like, come on, guys, you guys need to know.
They are innovating. It's just with AI, Apple is really freaked out about privacy. And so when you give your photos or your contacts or your messages to Apple, they're the number one most trusted company in the world because they don't do anything nasty with that data. Well, nasty with that data would be training models, right? If they want to compete with OpenAI and Anthropic Claude and Google Gemini, they have to use their data to train models. And Google's gotten over that and, has figured it out. But Google doesn't have that trust with people that they're not using their private data, right? And that's what it takes. And so they're still arguing, it's like, oh, shit, we can't use our customer data to train models. I have 100,000 photos in Apple, right? That kind of data, when it's aggregated among hundreds of millions or billions of people, is a very powerful data store to build a model. But they just are not able to do that because they want to be the privacy leader, right? And there's a lot of people who are going to be attracted to Apple because of that. And it's like, I know that my data is not being used to train models, right? Where I'm on the other side. Take my data and make a model because that'll improve my life. I posted 210,000 posts on X. Elon, take my data, make Grok better,
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting with Apple. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was the thing. But that's holding them back in some ways.
Yeah, they'll partner their way through this and they'll figure it out. But it's still it's an unknown thing, right? I'm still an investor in Apple, but I sold half my stock and bought some Google because I see that Google has Genie 3, which is a world model that's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right. You can tell it anything and it'll do anything. Like, take me skiing, take me on a camel ride in Dubai, take me into something that looks like Minecraft. And it does whatever your mind can come up with and tell it to do, right? So when Google comes out with this headset, which is coming around Christmas time, right? Does it have Genie 3 in it? And then do you compare it to the Apple Vision Pro that doesn't have Genie 3 in it and doesn't have a model because they were private? Now, I still have my Apple Vision Pro because the ecosystem is so powerful, right? I have a Macintosh, I have another Macintosh, I have an Apple Vision Pro, I have an Apple TV, right? And hooking all that into the Apple Vision Pro is very powerful. But the cool new things, the holodecks, the virtual beings, I have a feeling they're going to be better either on Meta or Google, because both of those companies don't care so much about privacy.
Wow. So one last question about the robotaxis, and I want to know your thoughts on this is, and I think the viewers will are curious about this too, is like, how fast do you see Tesla robotaxis scaling in the US and then globally? Let's talk about the US first.
Yeah. There's 300 cities in America with more than 100,000 people, right? So, by the end of next year, I would expect it to be in at least 10%. By the end of the year after that, 80%. The end of the year after that, 100%. Right? Wow. They just started out in Austin. That's like the Uber conversation I had in Paris.
Yeah.
And in 3 years, it was in a slum in South Africa. And I think that could legitimately happen in about 3 years, because they already have 11 million cars, 10 million, 11 million cars on the road, right? Robots that are capable of doing this, and more every day. And you don't need that many vehicles in a city. I mean, Waymo only has a couple thousand cars in San Francisco. Now they need more because their wait times are going up, right? So there's demand that's not being satisfied there. But it doesn't take that many cars to bring Robotaxi to a city. A couple thousand, and you can have a lot of Robotaxi rides every day. Because remember, my Tesla right now is sitting in the garage. It's an asset. It costs something and it's doing nothing. By the end of next year, that thing is out on the road driving people around every day, 5 rides, 10 rides a day, right?
Wow.
And so one car can have a lot of customers, right? By the end of next year, end of 2026, you're going to see this in a lot of major cities in America. And by the end of 2027, it's going to be in almost all of the major cities, in all of the bigger cities, 100,000 more. Might be even in weird places like Montana and Wyoming and Kansas and Iowa and, Alaska and a few places, right? It should spread real quick because it is a generalized robot system. We'll talk about generalized when it comes to humanoid robot. My car can go down a street it's never been on before and understand it. It's generalized. It understands how. It's like us. We're generalized, right? You take me to a place I've never been, I can drive a car. In fact, I drove up a car in Ireland on the left side, right? I had to reorient, go, oh, okay, I'm on a left-hand drive. But other than that, it was the same as driving in America. It was like a straight road, and you have lanes, stop signs, right? It's the same thing as driving in America, just a little bit different, right? And we're good at generalizing that way, at understanding a new place to drive. And this AI is doing real well. I mean, it's driving in China better than the Chinese robotaxis. So mostly developed here in America, right? And by the way, that's the real price. That should be the question for investors in Tesla. How fast are they going to turn on in China? Because China has 10 cities bigger than New York. 10, right? So if you think getting robotaxis into New York is important, it's 10 times more important to get it into China for an investor, because you're going to make more profit if you open up China than if you open up America. Right. And so I'm watching what's going on in China. By the way, why do you think the Cybercab is gold? I've been to China a lot of times. They're freaking crazy about gold, man. If they could put gold on all their walls in their house, they would. It's a cultural symbol to be gold.
Wow.
Have gold, right? So here, do you want to get in a gold car or a Waymo made by Zeekr that has some weird Lidar on it? It's not gold. Oh no, I'll take the gold car, right? So I think Elon's already planning, like, okay, I need to get into China. Let's make the car as gold as possible. And Franz, who designed their car, he even painted the tires gold. I was at the We Robot event where they announced the Cybercab. Yeah. The tires were painted gold to make it ultra gold. And I'm like, these guys are going after China, because in China, they care about ultra gold. Right?
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I
Yeah,
didn't
if
know
we go
that.
to
Like, it was a
Shanghai
big one.
together in 5 years, we're going to be taking a gold car, you know?
That'd be awesome. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's
We should
interesting.
talk about Cybercab. You know, why doesn't it have a glass roof? I asked the engineers this. You know, because my Tesla has a glass roof. It's sort of cool. You can, if you're at Yosemite National Park, you can look through the
Yeah.
roof and see the half dome, you know, or
Yeah.
El Capitan over your head. Why didn't? Oh, because one, it's expensive. So again, they're trying to reduce the cost. But he said the real reason is they argued over grams on this car. They needed to make the car as light as absolutely possible so that it could go a further distance on electricity and be cheaper to operate at scale, right? They're already thinking of a world where they might have 10 million of these cybercabs driving people around in all sorts of places. Has to go further, even a little bit. You know, when you have 10 million cars doing 8 rides a day, a little bit adds up. You know, a penny here, a penny there, it adds up to a pile of money eventually, right?
That's
And
insane.
and he said we can make it quieter. And if you're in a car without a steering wheel and you're not driving the car anymore, what are you doing? Watching a movie, having a conference call, sleeping, playing a video game, talking to AI, right? All of which require quiet. And that's experience. That's what I know. The experience of being in a Tesla Robotaxi, particularly a Cybercab, is going to be better than taking any other vehicle, right? Until somebody figures out the same thing, right? And they will. You know, because they'll all the engineers all, you know, watch the videos of the Cybercab and know what's coming, and they're going to try to figure out how to do the same thing, make a car that's very quiet inside and improve the experience. But they don't have it yet, and they don't have the factories all geared up. They don't have, you know, the AI all geared up, so they're way behind. You know, with China being the exception.
That's incredible. Per gram. That is
grams, right? They argued in meetings. They told me over grams, right? Which is one reason they got rid of the steering wheel. That's how much does the steering wheel assembly weigh?
That's heavy.
40 pounds. I don't know, you know, something, right? So that's right there. They can save 40 pounds. You know, that was a big win. And somebody like Elon can do that, right? And can say no steering wheel, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, that'll make it safer too. So if a drunk driver hits you at 80 miles an hour in the Cybercab doesn't have very much frunk in front of it. It's a very small frunk, but it does have a crumple zone. And in front of you is going to be a big, huge airbag because there's no steering wheel. What kills a lot of people in high-speed wrecks is the steering wheel is so close to your chest that the airbag explodes off of it, and your momentum is getting stopped, and you're getting shoved into that steering wheel, which causes you all sorts of internal injuries, right? Well, in a Cybercab, there's a big fucking pillow in front of you, right? Right? It's going to be safer. It's going to have better crash safety rating, is my prediction, than any other vehicle because they don't have a steering wheel. And that's going to be a big advantage. Also, who causes accidents? Humans. We kill 40,000 people every year in America and 1.2 million people around the world. AI is going to be safer. Certainly by the end of next year, the stats are going to be there. They're going to start piling up that it's safer, both with Waymo and Tesla. You don't hear about Waymo's killing anybody.
No, you don't.
You hear about my former partner died in getting hit by a car just last week, right? So I think about.
I saw that post,
right?
Yeah,
you know.
Sorry about that.
So the Cybercab is going to be safer because there's no human involvement. It has a bigger airbag in front of you. It's more comfortable. It's made to be sat in and not driven, right? It has good sound system, and it has a big fucking screen. And someday you're going to have some glasses on while in one of these things in 5-10 years, right? So the world is about to change. And as an investor, if you know this and you've done the homework like I have, you can say, well, in 10 years, are there going to be a lot of Cybercabs? Probably. Maybe I should invest in this company. Is there any competition? This is why I'm interviewing the Waymo customers. I want to know about the competition, and they're going to be there, but they're more expensive and not as good an experience. So you say, well, in 10 years, who's going to win this race? Yep. I have a feeling Elon's going to do pretty good in this game. I'll bet some money on Elon, right?
Yep. You mentioned the investors and stuff. There's a lot of, on my channel, I somehow get new investors to come watch my stuff. Like there's the OGs, but there's some new ones that come, and they're very emotional. And and a lot of them, it's crazy to me. They invest in Tesla. Yeah, they invest in Tesla, but they're doubters. And many of them, when I read the comments, they're upset because the stock has been flat for nearly 5 years. But then I don't know how many times I have to tell these guys that I'm like, guys, you're not investing in it for next week or next month or next year. Look at what's going on. We flipping have.
We haven't even started talking about Optimus yet. And we haven't even started talking about holodecks. Who has the best holodeck? Tesla does. Who has? Go onto the Golden Gate Bridge and count how many Teslas there are and how many Waymos there are, and think about, okay, he's gathering real-time data with cameras. So if a truck fire starts on the Golden Gate Bridge, who's going to have the best video of that? Who's going to have the best holodeck of that? Who's going to have the best simulator to deal with that? Tesla is going to have. Exactly. There's 25 Teslas on the Golden Gate Bridge alone right now. I go out and count them. Sometimes there's 50, right? And there's no Waymos. Waymos don't go across the Golden Gate Bridge yet. They will soon, but not yet, right? So who's going to have the best real-time data of what's actually going on the Golden Gate Bridge? Tesla. And who's going to be able to make a holodeck that images the Golden Gate Bridge? Tesla. And who's going to be able to train the robots to walk across the Golden Gate Bridge? Tesla. Right. So you start seeing, in 10 years, this should be a much bigger company than it is today. Right. Exactly. Only 2 million people in the world have FSD right now. There's 8 billion people in the world. Even if half of them hate Elon and will never get in a Tesla, that's a huge fucking growth market for Tesla. Right. So my money, I have a money manager because he keeps me from doing emotional shit. Like I sold Apple at 75 cents. That was, I got a job at Microsoft and I didn't want to bet on the competition, and I doubled my money. I was so proud of myself. I was like, I doubled my money, right? I bought it at 25 cents. I mean, back then it was a few dollars before it split. But he asked me a question. He goes, back in 1999, Amazon was $112. And then the whole world went upside down in 2000, and everybody started going out of business. And in 2001, Amazon was $6. He said every one of his clients sold. And he said, are you one of those people that's going to sell if it goes down? And I'm like, no, because I'm betting that this company is going to have 10-year impact. I'm buying for 10 years, and it's done pretty good for me. It's done better. I could have sold at the top, if I was smart, but I'm not smart. So I don't play short-term games. And I'm in for another decade because I see what's coming. I've done my homework, right? I wrote 2 books about spatial computing, and I drove my Tesla to Detroit to go and get a tour of the Ford factory and understand how Ford thinks. And I have friends still at Ford. I covered automotive innovation for a long time, and they're doing all right, but they don't have what Tesla, they don't have 100,000 NVIDIA cards in a data center building a model, right? Yep. So how are they going to get to FSD? They're going to have to make a deal with Elon, right? And
it seems like the only way.
They don't have a fleet of vehicles with cameras on it, really. I mean, you see a Mustang E here and there, but for every Mustang E I see in Silicon Valley, I see 100 Teslas, if not more, right? Yeah. So you start thinking about the data, you think about the infrastructure, you think about the AI efforts, you think about the future. It's like, it's hard to bet against Tesla right now. Since owning Tesla in 2018, it's gone down more than 40%, 7 times. A neighbor of mine lost money in 2020, a year when Tesla went up 5 times, because he bought at the peak of one of the peaks, and he sold at the bottom right before it ripped up. If you're emotional, that's the kind of mistakes you're going to make as an investor. If you're buying Palantir is the same way, right?
Yeah.
Palantir is a very expensive stock if you look at P to E ratios, right? It's a very expensive stock. But I've done my homework on that company too, and they're not going to stop growing at a very fast rate.
Right.
And once they get a customer, that customer is never going to rip them out. They're going to be a permanent customer because it transforms how you run a business, right?
Yeah.
And so it could go down 20% tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Trump says something or something happens in the world and the macro goes down, it could start going down. But I'm not selling that stock either. I'm not selling my NVIDIA stock for the same reason. You think in 10 years there's going to be fewer NVIDIA cards in data centers or more? I'm predicting there's going to be a lot more, right? So I'm like a long-term investor on NVIDIA. I'm a long-term investor on Amazon, even though they're struggling in AI. Why? Because they can get a product from a factory to your front door cheaper than anybody else. Are you thinking more people or less people in 10 years are going to use Amazon? I'm betting on a lot more, right? Yeah. So, you buy these stocks for a decade based on your homework, and then you don't get emotional. You can sleep at night, right? Yeah. Even if the stock goes down 10%, 20%, Amazon went down 10% or 15% recently. Doesn't bother me. Yeah. I'm in for a decade. I don't give a shit about the short term.
Yeah. I sold Palantir at $37. I mean, not knowing what the company does, right?
Yeah.
I bought it around 8 or 9.
Palantir is hard to figure out because it's not a company you use.
It's hard. Yeah. I'm just like, okay, I tripled my money here. I'm gonna take it out and put it into Tesla, and then I see it ripping up to like 200. And I'm like,
yeah, because you didn't know the company, right? You didn't do your homework. Most people don't do their homework on these stocks and don't think long term because it's hard to think long term. It's hard to figure out what Palantir really does. It's running the CIA. No, it's running our businesses. A Walmart using Palantir knows the name of the truck driver driving across Kansas right now, right? Knows everything about the business and can help the business run itself in a way. I used to be a strategist at Microsoft. I wish I had Palantir running Microsoft. I would have been able to make much better strategic decisions than I was back then. And it's going to keep growing and keep disrupting other businesses like SAP.
That's why it's very important to always have a long-term vision. And, my biggest conviction again in Tesla is the robotaxis. I think there's going to be millions of them. I think it's going to take over.
But it'll take a while, right? It's not going to.
It will take a while.
Even the end of next year, it'll be like, okay, it's getting going, and we can use it in San Francisco and a few places. But it might not be everywhere. It might not be popular yet because it takes time for people to discover a new way to do things, right? But you take a 10-year approach.
Exactly.
I can already see this happening over 10 years. 10 years from now, Robotaxi is going to be everywhere in the world and cheaper and better experience.
I agree. So the last question I have here for you, Robert, is it has to do with the Optimus, and I don't know how much what's going on behind the scenes with Tesla.
Quite a bit. I've been interviewing everybody and trying to figure it out. I've been visiting a lot of robot companies here in Silicon Valley and talking to the Chinese. I've talked to the guys who are making the software for Unitree, which just won all the gold medals at their Olympics last week, right? I have a list on X of all the robot people and all the robot companies. So I'm able to watch robotics and brain computer interfaces because of X. If you're not on X and watching my lists, you're hurting yourself because I've done the hard work of putting these all into organized lists so you can open up X Pro and watch the world go by and see what people are saying. And smart people will tell you things about companies, right? I just bought some new bank in Brazil. What's that? Right?
Yeah, that's amazing because I'm very curious to know like how advanced is Tesla's Optimus because we don't see it often. Only some videos every few months, and many people are saying that Tesla's Optimus, how can they be ahead? But we can't see it, even though Elon has mentioned many times that they're ahead. They are ahead, but they don't show Optimus because competitors
They might be
copy it for
behind
different.
today, can they show you off a thing or two? No, but they have the data. Go back to the Golden Gate Bridge. Who has the data of the Golden Gate Bridge? Who's going to be able to bring that data into a simulator, which is how these robot companies are training their robots to do various things, right? So how are they going to bring that data into a simulator to do the reinforcement learning, to train the robot? Who has the factories to make robots? Who has the factories to train the robots, right? They have dozens of Optimus running at Fremont factory right now. And workers are showing the robot how to do specific jobs, training it over and over again to build the simulator, build the data, build the understanding of what human beings do with their hands, right? In putting together a part or building an electric motor or something like that, or even just moving things around. Who has the factories in America? Now, Chinese have factories, but I'm talking just about America. Who has the brand? Who has the NVIDIA cards, the data centers, hundreds of thousands of NVIDIA cards and data centers to build the models? You start putting it all together, it's like, it might look like Optimus is behind, but no. They're able to come in, even if somebody gets a little ahead on a cute dance move or something like that, they're able to come in and ship a robot eventually at scale that, Figure or Boston Dynamics or Foundation Robotics can't do. They just don't have the same advantages. Everybody in robotics says Tesla's ahead, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Foundation Robotics, I interviewed him, and he tore apart Tesla's advantages and knows it very deeply because he's trying to compete with Tesla and find a market before, that Tesla won't see. And that's a legitimate way to go. He'll probably do pretty good because he's, thinking that way and really analyzing the competitors. But he says Tesla's ahead.
That's crazy.
Elon's
talking
the
about
only one to worry about is China, because our American business is going to buy Unitree robots or buy Tesla robots or buy.
I don't think that U.S. will even allow companies to buy
tariff
Chinese
the
robots.
hell out of them. Right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's kind of a national security. If you want to bring all these robots from China that will collect the data, that'll go back to the CCP. I don't know, man. That's it'll be cheaper, I guess, but you're paying in other ways, I mean, that is just
anyways. I don't see a competitor for Tesla. Brett Adcock at Figure talks a big game, but he doesn't have the same advantages. He might get ahead, in reinforcement learning for a certain thing here and there, and he might have a good demo. But 10 years from now, are we buying Optimus or are we buying Figures? I can't see how he is going to get to the place where Elon is, because he just doesn't have the same advantages. And it starts with a robotaxi, actually, right? Because if we have a robotaxi on my street and it can bring things to me, well, it can bring me a Optimus, right? And Brett doesn't have a robotaxi. So he's going to have to rent a Tesla or a Waymo to bring a Figure to my house, right? Right. And that's going to be a big part, because maybe these start a little expensive for the average consumer. So we're going to rent them for, an hour or to do our cleaning, or, a couple hours a week to do our laundry. And then we're going to rent them to our neighbors. I'm going to try to buy a robot eventually, right? I'm going to buy a Cybercab to do the same thing. If I buy a $35,000, let's say it's $35,000 to buy a Cybercab. Oh, that's not going to sit in my driveway. I'm going to buy it so that I can put it into the network and drive my neighbors around and make some money. Exactly. Right. And if it does well at that over years, then when the Optimus comes out, I'm going to do the same thing with Optimus and put an Optimus in the network. Right. And say, hey, you can my neighbors, you can rent an Optimus and it'll come over and clean your house or do your laundry or cook you dinner or take it. My best friend has really bad knees. He can't even take out his own garbage. He'd love an Optimus to show up for a couple hours to take out his garbage and clean his house and cook some meals. Right.
Yeah.
And there it becomes a more affordable prospect for the average American to share a expensive asset like a robot with your neighbors.
What's crazy about the Tesla Optimus is that I think the latest video they showed, which was a few months ago, showing how the thing is like taking out the trash and doing all these sorts of things. I had a light bulb moment going like, wait a minute, these guys, Tesla, they are making this generalized. They're making it that once it comes out, it's out for anyone who wants to order it. It's not like it's going to be factories first or then going to family homes. It'll be like, okay, it's ready generalized.
Yeah.
So that part, I'm just like, that is crazy. And then matching it up with what Elon said, he'd be surprised if they're not producing 100,000 robots by 2030. I'm just like,
yeah. That number might be small. I mean,
many are saying that
Apple makes 500,000 a year of these things, right?
Yeah.
And the robot is closer to making one of these than to making a car, right? And so you start thinking, well, as the cost comes down and the capabilities goes up, the numbers are going to start getting crazy. In fact, I've talked to Elon about this. I was like, do you have a spreadsheet to lay out your predictions of how many sales? He goes, you don't need a spreadsheet. The numbers are insane. That's what right? You start thinking about like there's 60 million people with bad knees alone in America, right? You start with that. My brother owns 2 bars. He wants 7 just to start of humanoid robots to work in his bar. And you start thinking about how many bars are in America like his, how many of them are going to buy a robot the first year, the second year, the third year, the 5th year, right? The 10th year. The numbers just start getting really crazy. And so, again, this is why I'm a 10-year investor. It's like, yeah, and I'll probably be a 20-year investor. If I hope I'm in the place where I never have to, I just give the stock to my kids and they keep going, right? And they can buy a house and a couple of robots. Yeah. But my kids that are at 100% in Tesla and they're doing pretty well, for their future. One kid can probably go to Stanford for a year on his Tesla right now.
Wow.
It's being sold today, and hopefully in 10 years it'll be more. That's the plan. And the other kid is a special needs kid. He has even more Tesla, and he'll probably be able to buy a robot with his Tesla and have a much better life, right? So that's the game. Try to make our kids' lives better.
Yeah, the future is looking insane. I mean, again, the human robots, it's hard for me to wrap my head around it. The robotaxis, I can see clear as day.
Yeah.
But the robots.
Well, think about the robotaxi. What do you want to use a robotaxi for? One of the common things I use an Uber for is to go to the airport. It's a 45-minute drive to San Francisco International Airport from my house. Well, what else do I have a 50-pound bag to carry. Could I order a Cybercab with an Optimus to help me with my luggage?
Probably.
Yeah. $20 for that, right? And just have a robot come and help you with your luggage and take you to the airport, So, and you start thinking like that. It's like, there's a lot of things we would want a robot for that's going to be enabled by the Robotaxi. In fact, what really is showing up here is everything as a service. And here's where I'm thinking about this. At the Consumer Electronics Show years ago, I saw a little Chinese robot that cleans glass. It's a little flat robot that sticks on a pane of glass and goes around the glass and cleans all the glass. The problem is, like in my house, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of glass just in front of me in my office, and I have windows all through the house, right? So I'd have to take that robot off after it's done with one pane of glass and put it on the other pane of glass, and then I'd have to go outside and do the same thing and
Oh,
20 or 40 times just I have a small house. Some of your viewers have houses that are 5 times bigger than mine. You rich people, you got a big mansion in the middle of nowhere, right? And you have a lot of glass. I mean, my friend Scott Jordan has huge panes of glass all through his house. Looks right on the mountains in Sun Valley, Idaho. He has a lot of glass. So an Optimus can bring this little tiny robot to his house, charge him $50 to clean his glass, and just sit there for a couple hours and just be moving the robot around. Well, that brings glass cleaning as a service to your house, right? Which is enabled by the Robotaxi and the Optimus and this little Chinese robot. Right. And so, and a lot of things in our life are like that. Snow blowing, there's snow blowing robots. There's grass cutting robots. There's a company here in Silicon Valley called Electric Sheep Company that's making landscaping robots that will cut your hedges and weed your garden and do all sorts of weird shit outside. Right. So you pay $100 a month or $500 a month, whatever it is, and it'll come and do all your lawns and your hedges and clean up. Right. And that is enabled by the Robotaxi, right? The Robotaxi can bring a Cybertruck with a bed can bring one of these specialized robots to your house. So it can bring everything as a service, and that's going to start shifting a lot of things. So think about, if you have a humanoid robot in your house and it's doing your laundry, who's buying the soap? Who's buying the Tide? Is it you or the robot? It's the robot. Here's where I started thinking like this, because I was partying with the CEO of Moet Hennessy, big alcohol company. I was at his suite in the French Open, watching Serena Williams beat somebody else. She was really bad. She's really badass at playing tennis. And I turned to him and I said, "What keeps you up at night?" He goes, "Uber." I'm like, whoa. You're an alcohol company. Why are you worried about a transportation as a service company? He goes, "First of all, I'm not an alcohol company. I'm a party delivery company. You're in my party right now, if you didn't get the point." I go, "Okay." And he goes, "And Uber can deliver a party to your house." In other words, Uber, if you order a party delivered to your house from Uber decides the alcohol brands and what else comes to the house and can disrupt the alcohol company. And the same thing is going to happen with Tesla, because you're going to hire maybe Tesla to come and do a party for your kids, make the food and bring the beer for your buddies and and set up the tables and bring a piñata for everybody to hit or some toy or something like that. And well, all of a sudden, who decided on all the brands? The robot did. And that puts Tesla in I'm talking myself into buying Tesla for 20 years. Maybe 30. This everything as a service world is going to come someday, right?
And the more generation that goes forward, they prefer that actually too.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. If you told me a Robotaxi can bring a robot, can bring
do all at one,
bring a case of beer and and some hamburgers for the barbecue and cook the hamburgers, and all I have to do is sit around and play with the kids and have fun with my family, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds great, right?
No, that's all in one. No, I love it. That's amazing. I love it. It's a pleasure talking to you, Robert. I love it. Now, before wrapping it up, I asked some users what are some questions that they would want to ask you, and one of the questions it was pretty interesting question, because we know we're going to a very robotic world where some jobs may go away, and maybe universal income is a thing in the future, but this is a very, I guess, it's an important question.
I don't like universal basic income yet.
No?
Maybe that'll be, after robots get billions of robots, we're going to need that, right? Because there's not going to be any work for anybody. But there's still a lot of jobs, We do need to retrain people. Truck driving is going away. Truck driving is the number one job in America. 1.3 million people drive a truck, right? So over the next 20 years, that job is going away. So don't plan on getting into truck driving if you think that's a career choice. But every one of those truck drivers needs a fair shot at a new American dream. my dad grew up in poverty in New York, right? And he pulled our entire family out of poverty by getting the wealth, by going to the army for a few years, and then getting the GI Bill so that he could get a PhD and move us to Silicon Valley and improve our lives, right? Everybody needs that shot. Everybody, and you can't learn something new if you're having to work three jobs trying to put food on your table, right? So if you get laid off, you should get a full boat for 4 years. That I think that's sellable to Americans, right? Where guaranteed minimum income sounds like socialism to people. And Americans don't like socialism.
That's right.
We don't like communism. We don't.
That's right.
And we have experience here. Right? We go to the Native American reservations. They get a paycheck from the government, and there's a lot of alcoholism, a lot of hopelessness. Yeah. It's not a good way to live. People need something to do, and there will be millions of jobs on the other side of this mountain, even with robots, And so we need to have a retraining program for people so that we can go and learn something new and get back into society and have some new job, a new thing to do. And I think that's far more attractive to people than guaranteed minimum income. But we're going to have that argument for a decade.
Yeah,
I like a GI Bill. Let's do a GI Bill style thing. Give people, if you get laid off, you should have 4 years to go learn something new, and we should have technology to teach you fast, right? AI can teach you fast, particularly once you get these glasses that are coming out. I went to a German augmented reality company called Reflect, and they put me in a headset, a HoloLens from Microsoft back then, and they taught me how to fix an electric motor in real time on top of the motor. It showed me how to take apart the motor, how to lay it out on the table. It watched me work. It showed me, here's the first 3 screws you have to take out, and it turned those screws into green. So I knew which ones to take out, right? There's a lot of technology like that can be used to retrain people very quickly and give them new jobs, even a truck driver, even somebody who's not very technical, right? And so everybody needs a fair shot at that American dream. Everybody needs the ability to get a new job, a new thing to do, at least. Even if there's no jobs, we're going to come up with new jobs. The holodeck is going to be here. We're going to create new things for people to do. So
knowing that, the question here is like, which human skills would you need the most in the next 3 to 10 years?
The ability to change. You got to learn to learn new things. You got to like to learn to be, to deal with uncertainty. If you get laid off, you have to learn new things. You have to learn new AI. You have to get into a new frame of mind. There's lots of things to do. If you're able to change, if you just want to sit at home and feel sorry for yourself, that's not going to lead you to a new life, right? If you're able to, use AI to learn, and AI is a powerful learning tool. I'm learning Spanish with AI right now. It's a powerful learning tool, right? And it leads to a better life if you learn, right?
That's right. The more you learn, the more you earn, I guess.
Well, even if it's not about that, the more you can connect with people, the more you're able to change and learn. And, even learning Spanish, you can talk to more people, right? Connect with people, make friends.
That's right. No, this is awesome. I think this is my favorite podcast that I've done. This is awesome. This is awesome. I absolutely love it. I definitely want to have you back on, Robert, maybe sometime in the future. This was an amazing podcast.
I try to bring it. I've been around the world. I've been to 80 countries and met a lot of people, been in a lot of homes, a lot of factories, a lot of R&D labs. And so I have a pretty good idea of what's about to come. And I'm pretty good at sort of predicting these general trends. And I like hearing from your readers about companies that I don't know about, because I need to learn about new companies that are coming along. So,
No,
I can't
I
see
love
them
it.
all.
Yeah.
Can't invest in them all, but I want to know, what's a new company coming along that's got people standing in line,
Yeah. I think it's Tesla. But anyways, yeah.
Well, there's others. I have some new bank in Brazil because I visited them 10 years ago, and they had lines of people waiting to get their credit card. And a week after I invested in them, Warren Buffett invested in them.
Oh, there we go.
It's doing
There we
all
go.
right.
Yeah.
It might not be as sexy as Tesla, but there's a lot of little companies like that are fun to invest in if you want to be a diversified investor, which I do because I like to sleep at night.
There we go.
Can't bet it all on Elon. He's a crazy man. Plus, some Chinese company might wipe him out someday. So I like a little diversification in my portfolio. It helps me sleep a little bit better.
No, I love it.
If there's other people who are like, I'm all in. I'm all
in. Yeah.
I'm jealous of those people. I'm not. I'm a different, I'm a more traditional, older investor, and I can't take a lot of risk like that and bet it all on one company. Wish I could, because maybe I would have bought a lot of Bitcoin back in 2011. I should have done that. That's another one of my mistakes. I gave a class on Bitcoin in 2011, and did I buy any? I told people at CES at a speech, hey, I just saw a lot of NVIDIA cards all over the show floor. Maybe you should buy some NVIDIA. A friend of mine was in the audience. He made a lot of money on NVIDIA. Did I buy a lot? No.
Yeah, I know.
So
same with me.
I'm trying to learn from my mistakes as well and make better investment decisions as well.
No, I love it. Everyone, please go ahead and just follow Robert on all the platforms, all the links in the description. Just, full of value. I love it. I absolutely love it. Robert, it's a pleasure speaking to you. And
thank you so much.
Definitely will have you on again, because this was awesome.
Love
is all. I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.